So that's a good way to start, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to start. If I don't know if you got him on the live, but let's just say Terry here blank a man's blank a week ago in Rhode Island. And with that, let's start the show. I am here. I am Nicholas Tanek, and this is your kinky friends. Please welcome from Rhode Island, the magnificent Sherry Cruz. We're going to talk about phone sex, pep love, financial domination, a whole bunch of other things, and hypnotism.
Yes.
Please welcome the magnificent Sherry Cruz. Sherry Cruz, say hi.
Hello. It's so great to be here.
So, the ultimate question: what's inspiring you these days?
What's inspiring? That's an open-ended question. Um, I I don't know. Like my love for kink just inspires me every day, honestly. I always am finding something new to do with kink, and I'm always learning something new, even after 8 years of being in the industry and being in the scene. It just is the fuel that keeps me going, honestly, is just my curiosity and learning about people's kinks and learning all types of new things. And to this day, I still hear things that I've never heard before. And honestly, I think that's what my biggest inspiration right now is, especially my upcoming work with Pep and all of the ladies that I have had the wonderful opportunity to get to know recently. They have been big inspirations to me as well. So, yeah,
Shout out to everybody at Pep Love. I
yes.
love the ladies at Pep Love. These ladies are a force in the kink community that they're underappreciated. I think they should be appreciated more. I think you should call everybody at Pep just for the inspiration alone. Of course, give them money, but still for the inspiration alone. That's what we're all about here. You're a dominatrix. Let's get to some of the things out of the way. Every dominatrix seems to have specialties. Some are like Jacqueline's of all trades, but some focus on certain things. What's yours? What's your specialty? What's your focus?
I would definitely say that I am a jack of all trades, but right now I seem to be specializing in hypnosis, medical play, medfet, chastity is definitely a big one, as you can see. Key holding, I enjoy CBT. Those are, I think, my big ones right now. Sissification is definitely up there, financial domination. I love a little bit of everything, and my desires change. I think every day. Right now, I've definitely been focusing a lot on medfet and hypnosis. Those have been the two big things for me.
Mad fat and hypnosis. Oh, Stan, please remind me later in the show to talk about medical play. Stan is a part of the show. He designs all the banners and stuff like that. He has a love and appreciation for medical play, and I want to make sure that everything's covered. We got a lot to cover, a lot of territory to cover tonight. It's gonna be fun. Okay, all right. Let's. How do we start? Let's start with pep love. All right, phone sex. First of all, how did you meet Sarah Miles?
So actually, and don't mind me with my little rag here. I sweat like a horn church. Um, in fall of 2023, actually, Vivian Vibes, who I spoke about previously, she's been on your show before. She's a good.
Vivian, I love Vivian.
Yeah, she's
Submit
great.
to
She's
Vivian.
amazing. Posted about Pep hiring, and I had had some interest in Pep Love before that previously, and they take applicants very few and far between. They do not hire people very often. So when there was a chance to apply for Pep, I obviously hopped on that opportunity. And that was how I first met Sarah Miles. I had my interview with Sarah, Nina Rose, and Amy Mercury, and they were all amazing. In honor of honesty and transparency, I completely tanked the first interview in November. I have never done anything like that before. I've been in the
Really? Okay. That all right. That's just fascinating to me.
yeah,
What tanking an interview, right?
yes,
Because
yes,
a lot of people out there they're going out for jobs and they're interviewing too. But this is a different kind of job.
yes.
Tell me how you tanked the first interview with Pep.
It's kind of embarrassing, but I'll be honest. I've been in the industry for 8 years, and I have been completely independent that whole entire time. I've done everything on my own. I have never worked for anybody ever. I have not even had a civilian job in 7 years, maybe longer. So it was new territory for me, honestly. It was not something that I was ready going into. And it was a little bit daunting and intimidating because I am trying to impress these people, obviously, and get a job with them. And that was very scary for me, and I was ill prepared for that. So, yes, the first time around, I actually did not get hired with PEP in November. And only recently, about a month ago, they reached out to me again. Sarah Miles emailed me and said that they had a guest star position open up. And they asked me if I wanted to do another interview with them and if I would take it. And this time around, I was much more comfortable going into it. And I got hired pretty much on the spot with PEP about a month ago now.
Shout out, please support Pep Love, everybody, and check out the Pep Love last Sarah Miles episode. It has all the ladies from Pep Love, and it shows the solidarity of the Pep Love ladies. Absolutely wonderful. So, what would you say makes Pep Love different from the other, group of doms and phone sex people? What makes Pep Love so special?
PepLove is a very unique company. They are very small, they're very boutique. As I said, they hire extremely selectively. So they hire very infrequently, and they keep a very small group of women who they want to work with them for a long time. They want longevity in their careers. And that's ultimately what makes PEP different is the attention to very personal interactions. We want to get to know our clients. We want to have returning clients and have reoccurring interactions and dynamics with people. And I think that's ultimately what makes PEP different in the sense that it's not so open and oversaturated like other phone sex companies like say Night Flirt and Sex Panther, who anybody can apply to those and work on those sites. So we pay attention to very intimate interactions with our clients. And also, I think what makes PEP different is that we can talk about things that we can't talk about on other platforms. There are very few limitations and restrictions to what we are allowed to indulge in with our clients. So any of those very niche taboo fantasies that you have, we can definitely discuss those with you and indulge in those with you at PEP.
What are some of the fantasies that you never thought you'd be into, but now you're like, wow, I get it?
That's a tough one for me because I'm a very kinky fucking person and I like everything. I've definitely embraced more of the fantasy side recently. People who have like the really out there fantasies that you don't typically hear about in your day to day, not just the typical chastity or humiliation and degradation. People who have really sat there and thought about these intricate fantasies that they have. I find those really, really fascinating. I've definitely,
So do I.
yeah.
I mean, as an author, I love people. I love characters. So not only the different people, I'm sure that call you every single day, but the stories and the imagination. It's inspiring. People like you inspire. I mean, that's the beauty of it. We have a comment from Sunshine. Welcome, Miss Terry Cruz. Thank you for sharing your story. I genuinely appreciate your honesty. If it's not too much trouble, would you please stand up so we can see your whole beautiful self?
I'm gonna give you a little sneak peek because you're gonna have to go see the rest on my other sites. So you only get a little bit, just a little bit, just a little tease.
Stan Vladimir comes in with a question. When it comes to phone sex, do you prefer for the phone or to a device where you could see each other and interact? For which one impacts more? Because there's power in just a voice too. You know what I mean? So which one?
I think that I honestly like just the phone because it leaves, some imagination. It leaves some extra curiosity and creativity. And it's kind of like, if you want to see me, you have to kind of work for it a little harder. And like you said, there is so much power in just hearing my voice and knowing that I have so much power over people with just my voice without them even seeing me or being in my presence.
Now, when it well, working in the sex industry, especially phone sex, you have strangers with their imagination calling in all the time, and you now through the years you start seeing it all. What's the last thing that surprised you? That you're like, oh, okay, this is new. This is
Not much surprises me anymore, honestly. I have heard literally everything. I think still like what really gets me is the castration fantasies. People who want to be castrated, which not at all kink shaming. Like that is absolutely something we can discuss and talk about. But it still is like a little bit out there and surprising for me that people enjoy that and want that.
So if you were going to castrate somebody right now, right? Okay, let's say I got somebody, right? I mean, we're in a dungeon. We're in a dungeon right now, and they have a castration fantasy. It's not real, right? It's consensual. It's not real. I'll get that out of the way. What would you do? What is it? What is it? I haven't. I don't. I do not have this fetish, so I'm not sure. But a lot of people do. Please tell us what. How do you? I come to you with a castration fantasy. Cut my balls off.
um, Obviously, like you said, it's fantasy. It's not something that I would ever actually act out. There are some doms who actually do partake in legitimate castration, and that's just too far for me. In terms of fantasy, it involves typically a lot of CBT, a lot of chastity, a lot of, with chastity, there's shrinkage, their manhood becomes more useless essentially. So that's a big part of it. Long term chastity, then the CBT aspect, the actual pain and feeling like I am hurting them in a way, even though I'm not, but it feels like I'm hurting them in a way that could potentially be a detriment to their manhood. I've had men, I think the most recent and most fascinating to me, and trigger warning here, I had a client who was long distance and I had never actually met in person, but he had a castration fantasy and he liked to cut his dick and balls. And that was like as far as we would take it, and I have medical background and experience and all of that also. So I know the anatomy and I know everything to partake in that kind of play safely. But that was, I think, the closest thing he could get. He would tie his balls up really, really tight with shoestring, and then he would take a razor or a scalpel and cut the shaft and cut the balls and do some form of bloodletting. And that, to him, in his mind, when he would lose some of the sensation or whatever, that was the closest thing that he could personally get to fulfilling that fantasy. I've also had people who want me to nail their balls to a board, which is kind of
It's so common these days. Why is everyone doing that? I don't want to do that. Please don't do
it's not for everybody. I could not necessarily
not the
tell
king
you
shames,
why.
but go for it. Go for it. Nail those balls. Awesome. But I do notice, seriously, I do notice, because it's in movies. There was a movie called Matrice, a very French movie about dominatrix, where they really do it in the movie. And I see it all. I see it more and more, it seems. There's a lot of cock and ball torture. So let's talk about that. Why? Why do you think, especially now, more than ever, men want their balls and cock tortured? Why?
Why does anybody like pain? I mean, why does anybody like pain? It's fun. It's pleasurable to people. It releases endorphins in your brain, and
Yeah.
it's in a form of escapism. Maybe it's subconsciously some form of feminism and wanting to submit to women because men feel like that's what they deserve. I think it's up to each individual person and their own desires why they like it.
In my opinion, I feel it makes me feel more alive. And that's what, especially after I had a liver transplant 2 years ago. And so I have a profound new view of life, right? Like, and everything tastes different. That means every spanking feels more intense, right? It's like that. Let's get some questions. Mark Steed says, "Thank you for this interview. Miss Cherry Cruz is very beautiful." He is correct.
Thank you.
Latin Cruise Collectibles, definitely go and subscribe to her content. Some of the hottest out there. David Kramer, evening to all the lovely individuals here. I've watched plenty of Nicholas Dom interviews. This is the first live chat I've been to during the interview. Oh, well, welcome, David. All right, let's do. Okay, we talked about castration. We talked about phone sex. Oh, it's not done with the phone sex. All right, what is the most popular? So the most castration's coming up a lot. Giselle, shout out to Giselle from Pep Love. She's good with the Clippers. shout out to Giselle. What are some challenges you face as a, a phone sex worker, basically. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I would say personally, for me personally, I have less boundaries when I'm doing something online or over the phone than I do in real life. My boundaries differ from if I'm doing an in-person session, um, from just a role play scenario. And so that can be challenging sometimes when you have a really rough, intense call and it is something that makes you slightly uncomfortable, but you're doing it because you're A, fascinated by it, and B, it is your job, you know? And because it's a role play scenario, it's, I can live with myself at the end of the day because I'm not doing something that makes me uncomfortable in real life. But I have had some interactions that have been very difficult for me to process and handle at the end of the day. So I think that is my biggest challenge personally.
So there's no segue to this next question, so I'm just going to ask it. How often do people want you to hypnotize them to be their sissy hypno, basically?
That is like probably one of the most common hypnosis requests that I get personally, because it is like putting them in the headspace, and sometimes they need a little kick in the ass to get there personally, and take that leap, and guiding them and affirming them in that desire, definitely is intertwined with hypnosis and the subconscious aspect. So I would say that's probably the biggest hypnosis request that I get.
Hypnosis takes a great deal of practice, to master. So, what kind of training did you engage to, like, who did you study? Because it's not just books or classes. There's certain people that you just gravitate to, certain things that you gravitate to. What did you do to prepare for your hypnosis domination?
So my hypnosis journey actually started when I was very, very young in self practice. Something I've always been fascinated in, but I'm somebody who suffers from chronic illness and chronic pain. And so one of the pain management treatments that I received at a very young age was a form of hypnosis called
Yes.
yes.
Say it again, please.
Um, I uh,
No,
I
the name of the hypnosis. Say it again, please.
it's called biofeedback. Um, and it's a form of psychotherapy and hypnotherapy, and meditation essentially. And that's what kind of kickstarted my journey into hypnosis. And then I have been in hypnotherapy myself for mental and physical health issues. And then I realized this is something that I can use in kink and something that I can use in my career, which I expanded when I got older. And I think that some of my biggest influences were those hypnotherapists and those biofeedback professionals and the psychiatrists that I personally had when I was younger. And that's, I think, ultimately what got me into it. I have not studied a lot of professional hypnotists at this point. I know of a few of them. I can't think of a name off the top of my head. I'm very bad with names. If I saw a face, I would know. Um, but a lot of it has been through personal practice, personal experience, workshops, reading books, my own practice, my workshops, and other mentors that I've had the great experience of being able to work with. And this year, I'm actually attending school to officially become a certified hypnotherapist to use that professionally in my work.
We have a question. Um,
Mm-hmm.
can we use hypnosis, mass hypnosis, to change the masses and maybe actually change laws? And also, how about this? Can we use mass hypnosis for this show to give us money and to because we are good for the kink community. We are good for life. We are good for everybody. And to do this, for us, both of us, to continue this, we need support. So can we hypnotize the entire internet to support us?
I do believe subliminal messaging in the internet, especially, exists, and brainwashing to some extent in society as a whole, honestly. But I don't think it's possible to mass hypnotize people because, in order to do that, it takes a lot of practice, and you
Yeah.
have to be receptive to it, And I don't think everybody
Mhm.
is receptive to it or willing to accept the power of suggestion. So I don't think it's possible.
So let me ask you this. Everybody has a different kind of style, technique. So how would you describe your style of erotic hypnosis? How do you
a
put someone
lot
on?
a lot to do. I really like pendulum induction. That's a big one. A lot of sensory triggers like snapping, counting down, visual sensory things, refractory images, sensory stim toys. That's a big thing that gets a lot of people. A lot of a lot of reinforcement and affirmation. That's a big thing, especially with the sissy hypnosis. It's a lot of affirming that desire and affirming the sissification, the feminization that you have to keep drilling into people's heads. I have like a multifaceted approach to hypnosis, I would say, but I really focus heavily on the deep psychological hypnosis and combining that with the sensory and the physical meditation and relaxation and sensory techniques.
There are many reasons why a person wants to be hypnotized. Sometimes it's sexual, sometimes it's wanting to not have control, sometimes to improve themselves. Sometimes it's just to get off. What is the most common reason someone comes to you for hypnosis? Like, what reason do you encounter the most often? I mean, I know it's sexual because, yes, pep loves. You take that out of the equation. I mean, don't take it out of the equation, but consider that evergreen, so to speak. On top of that,
I think that
what else? What reason?
it's a form of escapism, of course, but I think ultimately hypnosis is the ultimate form of total power exchange. It's the desire to ultimately submit to somebody and have them control you. And I think that's what I see the most often. And that's like the most often reason people come to me for hypnotism, for sure, is to just completely let go of all power and control and hand that over to me and unlock something within themselves that they haven't been able to, or that they've been interested in but just haven't been able to get to that point yet. And that's definitely the biggest reason why everybody comes to me for it.
Give us money. Give us money. Give us money. Help us succeed. Help us succeed. Help us succeed. I'm subliminally putting that out there. So basically, erotic hypnosis. Some people just brush it away. It's like a way to get off, but it's not. Hypnosis is a very powerful tool. How has erotic hypnosis, or just the art of hypnosis, or hypnosis in general, help your subs personally?
I think that it's helped them come to terms with things about themselves that they didn't feel comfortable fully embracing beforehand. Like you said, for sissification, for example, like they know that that's what they're into, but they need somebody to confirm that for them, and they need to come to terms with that on their own. And repeated suggestion, and affirmation, and the practice that it takes to be hypnotized and constantly reinforcing that idea into them is really what helps them come to terms with that. And I think that overall helps them in their day-to-day lives and their confidence and in their kink lives and embracing their kinks and who they truly want to be.
So this is the subliminal message. Kink helps kink. In other words, the message I'm trying to get out is help a kinky person out. Seriously, I'm stopping the show right now to say this. I interviewed Goddess Narcissa, and she was telling a story about how she was in the hospital. She got attacked, and she was in the hospital. And because she was wearing a latex dress, she was ignored, practically tossed aside in the hospital. Anybody who judges us, a kink person, for shame on them. Kinky people help each other out. That's back to the show. David Kramer, I've been looking to experience mental manipulation play solely in doing sensation and sensory play with extreme masochist kinks like castration mentioned earlier. Oh, okay. David doesn't have a question. He's just letting us know that. Okay. But
if you ever need any help with that, feel free to come to me.
Yeah, definitely. So now when it comes to hypnotism, there is, let's say, I don't want to say conservatives or something, but there are some people who don't understand the fetish community, and they think we're just out for money, right? So we're hypnotizing. Like, there was a narrative. I saw I don't want to give them any publicity, but I saw a news report saying that the porn industry they're taking men the masculinity away, locking them, making them wear women's clothing, and financially they say they're financial doms and they're hypnotizing them. Stuff like that. That's what we're coming against. So since it's really all about money, right? That's what they hate. Any kind of hatred towards the kink community is about money. That's why we need our own money. That's why we should support financial dominatrixes like you. So tell us about financial domination. What do you think financial submissives gain from that fetish? Why do they keep coming back? They keep giving money. What do they get?
So on a subconscious level, if you think about it, we live in a world that's run by capitalism, and so often our worth is determined by how much money we have. And for somebody who doesn't see their worth in any other light, that is something that they know that they're going to get the attention and the gratification that they're seeking from another person. They cannot, how do I explain it? They can't disappoint me when they give me their money in other ways that a submissive could, I think that is a subconscious part of it, but I think that the physical desire it's taboo. It is exhilarating. It is arousing to them like any other form of submission. It's a form of escapism. They want to contribute to my success and to my life, and in a way, I think that it's like in their mind, they are taking care of me, and they realistically they are, they're contributing to my success and my livelihood by handing over that money to me. But it's exciting, especially I'm somebody they don't really know at the end of the day. No matter how well you know me as a dom or as a client or as my submissive, you still are not in my life in a personal respect. So to them, it's like an intimate interaction that they get to have with me, and they know that they can essentially buy my attention, and that's what they want.
Yeah, a lot of the things, a lot of the hypno doms that I know, they don't want to just milk someone's dry. They want to control. It's a domination. So that means making sure that their checkbook is, managed. Making sure that So, what are some ways, surprising ways, that actually financial domination helps people?
I think that it helps people stay on track. Definitely, for me personally, I am somebody who does give a shit about my submissives and their well-being. I'm not somebody who's just in it for the money. As much as some subs are into that, where they're just like, oh, just take everything from me. Like, ethically, I can't do that, and I need to know that you're in a good financial position to be able to do that, because I don't want you to not be able to pay your bills or take care of your family or anything like that. So I think that it kind of is like a form of guidance. Like, I'm kind of a financial advisor in a way, helping them keep track of their finances and what they're able to spend, and not just spending frivolously on things, and having it have an actual purpose. And staying within a budget, and not just, it's like gambling almost. Like, you can't just go throw all your money down the toilet and expect to have money after that. So I think that's the way that I help them keep track of their finances better, and in turn better their lives.
We have a question. Does the amount of money change the way you reward your subs, regardless of the personal connection with them? Why or why not?
Yes and no, I would say. Because I do take a genuine liking to some submissives, and obviously the ones that I take a genuine liking to do get a little bit more attention and a little bit more reward from me. But at the same time, I can't do that with everybody, because I would never make any money or be successful in this industry. So I think that reward is an incentive. I have to offer them some denial and some reward, for their good behavior and their good actions. And that's incentive for them to give me more money. So I have to, it's a fine line that I kind of have to walk.
Now, I know you, and I know some financial dominatrixes, very good ones. And then I am bombarded every day because I love sissy porn, and I love the whole narrative and cross-dressing, and because I'm Nicholas Tanek from Your Kinky Friends, they all catfishers every day, all day, just saying, "Will you be my slave? Will you be my slave?" and stuff like that, especially the financial doms. And I just want to say, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong, and they don't listen. Obviously, they're probably not even a woman. It doesn't matter, but the point is, you see it without naming names.
Yeah.
How is financial domination getting a bad name? Or how are they doing it wrong?
It gets a bad name because it's become such a mainstream oversaturated market, especially over the last few years, especially when COVID hit. If you look on places like Twitter and stuff like that, there's a huge industry of women and even men saying that they are financial doms, and they don't actually have any premise of DS relationships or BDSM or femdom or any of it. They're just coming on the internet thinking that it is a quick internet grab. I mean, coming on the internet thinking it is a quick money grab, excuse me, and not actually realizing that it is, you're legitimately taking somebody's well-being and livelihood into your hands, and you are still a dominant, and you are still, whether it's just findom or not, you're still practicing BDSM and DS dynamics, and that's what they fail to understand. They think that any 18 or 19-year-old who wants easy money and doesn't want to work for it thinks that they can come online now and just say, hey, give me your money, I'm hot, and they don't realize that there's so much more to it than just that. And I think that's what gets findoms a bad name, because there are people like me and tons of other people in the industry who've been doing this for 20 plus years. Financial domination is not a new concept. And we are legitimate and we're serious about it, and we take it seriously, and we care about our clients and our submissives. And that's why it gets a bad rep as a whole, because there are unfortunately so many people who don't care and don't take it seriously.
This is what I want to do. Let's do a financial domination like corporation, kind of like like Wall Street, and it's exclusive, and it's only for people who want to make money. So we get financial analysts and accountants and all that stuff, and we go corporate. We sell out. Stan says, finding dom is an interesting concept. However, it's risky. Financial dom is risky, and you need to find the right partner for it. All right, Stan coming through with some insight. But let's talk about lifestyle. So once you cross that line of financial domination and dominatrix and all that stuff, you start living a lifestyle. It's not just a job. You live this lifestyle, correct?
Yes. This is a
Tell me it.
Lifestyle for me.
And there's all some people have definitions. I'm a dominant, I'm a sub, I'm a switch, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. How would you describe yourself?
I don't talk about this often in my professional side of things, but I am through and through. I'm a switch 100%. In my personal life, for very, very few people, for my partner strictly, I am a submissive. And in my professional life, you could not get me to sub to you no matter how much you paid me.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, lifestyle. Was there ever a time that you felt like you were burnt out, and that, because I know a lot of people now, there's like really good friends of mine who are just, they're kind of just sexed out. You know what I mean? Or it's not that they have to kind of go into hiding. Sometimes it's pressure from their family or their work or their job or wherever, wherever they live. So did you ever get to a point where you wanted to totally give up? And obviously you did not. What changed your mind? What inspired you to keep going?
So I've obviously been very burnt out, and I've obviously always had the question of like, do I continue to do this? Can I continue to do this? It's more so on the professional side, because there is so much pressure there. You have to be so consistent. It is an everyday thing to be a dom, to be a content creator. It's constant. Like, you never get a break. You never get time off. Like, even when you're not actively doing a session or filming content, you are still working. You're still talking to clients. And that can be very physically and emotionally draining if you don't prioritize your own self-care and your own needs and desires. In my personal kink life, I've never felt that way, because I feel like my desires and needs are being met. But definitely in the professional side of things. And it is very hard to be dominant all the time and to never feel like you have an outlet in the professional part of your life to express yourself wholly and fully, And that's where my personal life comes in, and my personal connections, and the time that I take off to do me and what feels good to me. But obviously, I keep going because this is not just a career to me. This is something I am so passionate about and such a big part of my life that no matter how stressful it ever gets, I can never go back to a 9 to 5. I can never go back to a sim job. Like, I absolutely adore this. I love my clients. I love what I do. I love making an impact in people's lives. And for every shitty day that I have, there is something that always happens that makes it worth it.
Those wise, wonderful words. Oh, awesome. Ashtray Boy, Ashtray Boy 6. Because 1 through 5 left many questions. Ashtray Boy 6, thank you for joining in the show. Miss Cherry Cruz, you mentioned you suffer from chronic pain. Have you tried weed? And if a person had a smoking fetish, would you consider smoking during a session? Or maybe out
Now you're speaking my language. I'm the biggest pothead on the planet. I smoke all day, every day, and I absolutely love intox play. I love human ashtray play. I love smoking. I love incorporating that into kink in my personal play. And as a dom, I absolutely love 420 subs who want to smoke with me or who want to get high, and I love that. I love that aspect of it. So yes, absolutely.
All right, let's talk. So I can't do drugs. The only drug I can do is cannabis, which is I can't drink anymore. I can't. I had my fun. Let's put it that way. I had so much fun. I have a new liver because of it. Um, yeah. So weed is beautiful, but there's also a culture. How do you mix in cannabis culture and dominate and the BDSM culture? Because they go hand in hand a lot. What are some fun ways to do that?
Intox play is definitely one of them. People like the idea of coercively, consensually, obviously getting high, especially if that's not something that they do in their day to day lives. They like having control in that aspect where I tell them I want them to get high because then they're looser, they're more likely open to suggestion and to do what I tell them to do, and that's how people like that aspect of it. I have weed subs who instead of, bring me money, they bring me weed, which I fucking love that. I haven't had to spend money on weed in like 5 years. It's great. That's another thing. And then there's definitely the human ashtray aspect of it, where instead of me smoking cigarettes, which I would much rather smoke weed, I have people who want to be my human ashtray. And they want me to smoke a joint, and they like watching me smoke, and then they want me to ash my blunt or my joint in their mouth. And I love that too. I think there's power in any psychoactive substance or anything that alters your consciousness, and I think weed is one of the tamer ones that I personally feel more comfortable with and have experience with. So yeah, and I think it can be like a very intimate experience too to smoke with somebody, and
Yes,
yeah, definitely.
the whole ritual of it. Not just smoke, but even the dab.
Yeah.
Now having the dabblicator, getting something, making sure there's, squeezing to a certain amount, and there's a whole the ritual aspect of it. Speaking of rituals, getting ready for this show, I was listening to some music. I have certain rituals with everything, and we all have rituals. Do you have certain rituals before a session, or before a phone call, or both, or either?
I personally like to prioritize self care before a call, before a session. Like before a session, if I'm free the day before, the night before, I will do my full self care routine. Take a bath, treat myself to a good meal, smoke, relax. Before I do anything like this, when I have to get ready, when I'm doing my makeup, my hair, everything like that, I love to listen to music. I love listening to podcasts, just anything that will put me in a good headspace and relax me. I smoke before pretty much everything because I think that is ultimately what helps me focus and calms my mind down. So yeah, that is my ritual.
Yeah, no, I mean it's marijuana became legal on 420. On 420, a couple years ago, I did on the show, not this show, I did Mr. Shari's show, and it's memorable because weed was outlawed so long in New Jersey. I'm in New Jersey, and it was finally legal, and that was a beautiful feeling. Now, do you think certain because of platforms, because of the kink community is getting deplatformed? that they're kind of coming after us at the same time, but they're also legalizing things. And now, because of our voices are being heard as a community, right? Do you see it kind of going that way? Whereas, is it getting better or is it getting worse in terms of expression and getting, legalization of it, of legalization of kink and
I think at this point in time, it's getting worse, personally, because there's a lot of new bills being passed into office. COSA, you can look that up. I'm not going to get into huge detail about it right now. The Kids Online Safety Act that's being passed or attempting to be passed by Congress right now, which is supposed to quote unquote protect children, but realistically, all it does is harm sex workers and literally anybody who uses the internet, and is a huge invasion of our privacy. And that is a massive issue for online sex work. And I think it's just further making the process of legalization and destigmatization harder when you're removing our availability and our ability to access online resources, not just about sex work, but about sexuality, about gender, about sex education, all the things that we need. And that's ultimately what this bill right now is trying to do, is trying to make it harder for us to access all of that information. And that doesn't help us, especially now with platforms. The big thing lately is credit card processing companies and payment processing
yeah.
companies not supporting online sex work industries like OnlyFans. There's been a big issue, and other sites. AVN got taken down a couple years ago, no longer monetized because of that reason. The payment processing companies don't want to support sex workers. And so that's a big issue right now. And there's constantly new platforms being created and coming up, but at the same time, we're constantly having platforms and censorship, platforms being taken away from us and censorship becoming more prevalent, which makes it harder for us to do anything.
With that being said, I'm gonna ask this one question, then we're gonna get to the real fun, silly stuff. But with that being said, platforms, like I said, they're coming after us. We have to fight. It's the underground. The kink, we got to stick together. What platforms are you using these days? Just like Twitter's now X. People going back to Tumblr. Where are you on?
The biggest thing that I was using until recently was FetLife, and that was where I consistently got clients for sessions for like 5 years straight. A lot of people shit on FetLife because they just don't know how to use it properly. But even recently, I've been getting put in timeouts, which is what they call it, and getting banned for like 3 days a week, here and there, in groups that I've used that are specifically for pro domination and findom for years, that now we're getting in trouble for even using that. So like, pretty much anywhere is difficult. The platforms that I use right now the most are Loyal Fans. That's a relatively new one. It's sex worker owned and run, and that's pretty open as of right now. They don't have a ton of restrictions. They don't even have a 2257 policy in place right now, meaning you don't need to get model releases for your other models in your videos. And they're very kink friendly. Fansly is definitely another one. Those are paywall platforms like OnlyFans, except they're a lot more accepting of kink. And for promotion, I still use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter is probably still the most accepting, but now they are cracking down hard on censorship, like the hardest they ever have. So it's very difficult. You have to be very, very careful and very censored in what you post on any public platform.
Yeah. And remember, this is America. This is about free speech. Let's speak freely. There's consequences to free speech, but free speech is essential to this country. And I love it. So let's speak freely. What's the most humiliating thing you've seen recently, or that you've done to somebody recently?
I love this question because this is a fun one. So this man,
I told you it was gonna get fun.
Yes, this is where it gets fun. This man, I thought about this when you asked me these questions previously, and I really thought about this one. I had a man recently who has been one of my clients for a while, and he is a high corporate executive out of New York City. I'm not going to name names or say where, but yeah, let's just leave it at that. And he is a huge diaper lover and a huge sissy. And so he earned a pretty harsh punishment for some repeated disobedience. And so I think of a good punishment to give him. And, I'm like, in order to redeem yourself, you have to do something pretty, like, you know, to show your loyalty to me and pretty intense. So I had him, he had some concerns previously and, was iffy about wearing diapers in public and to work. But, he was open to the idea of it. And I finally, he finally gave in to that idea. So I had him wear a very padded diaper to work under his very tight work suit while he was locked in chastity under the diaper because he's been locked in chastity for me anyway. And I had him wear like some pretty pink lace sissy panties over the diaper under his clothes. And that's not really punishment in itself because he enjoys those things. So I had him go to the bathroom on one of his breaks and he had to FaceTime me. So I knew that he was actually fulfilling what he said he was going to do. And I had him pee the diapers, like I had him wet himself with the chastity on, with the panties on, everything, like the wet, bulky diaper, and made him
That's
go
a
back.
mess.
Hmm?
That's a mess.
Yes.
It's like it. Oh,
Yes, but I made him go back out to, his meeting and talk to his employees, and he's like the big boss man, so he had to go back out there in the wet diapers, like, and nobody knowing, but he knows that he's wet and he's uncomfortable and embarrassed and worried that everybody's gonna find out. Then even to add to that, after the fact, I do team viewer sessions, which is where you can go on people's like devices and computers, phones remotely with their permission and access pretty much their screens and all of their devices. Like whatever they see, I can see, and I can access everything. And if I have their passwords or whatever, and they give me permission, I can do what I want. So even after that, I had him remotely sitting at his desk, and I remotely went in his account and sent myself money from his account while he's sitting there in chastity and panties and a wet diaper. And that was so much fun for me. And I think he learned his lesson.
DL Joyce's awesome session. Yeah, Kink, the Team Viewer software. All right, sissification. I have a personal love for sissification, the whole narrative, stuff like that, and it's changed throughout the years. The more women I know who are also into it, and the more I am in the kink community, my attitude has changed. It's a very complicated fetish. So throughout the years, and has your attitude towards sissification evolved or changed in any way, and how?
Yes and no. I've had a lot more interactions with trans femme subs recently. And recently one of my trans femme subs has like fully come out to everybody. When I first met her, she had not. And when I had first met her, she was still into sissification. And recently, like she didn't make me aware that her interests had changed or her feelings had changed yet. So I had posted something about her. I posted a picture of her from one of our sessions, and in the caption I had said something about her being a sissy, and she texted me and she expressed to me that she was no longer into sissification, and it felt like it was degrading to her now that she's come into her full identity to be called a sissy and wants to only be called trans femme or a woman. So like my viewpoints in that respect have changed, and how it's a respect thing, but like my personal interest in it has not changed. I still feel the same way about it personally. I've just learned to be more mindful of how other people interact with sissification, how they want to be portrayed.
I'm glad that you said that, because I struggle with that as well. I love women, I do, and I love womanhood. I'm a feminist, straight up, and I don't want to degrade women at all. I don't. It doesn't turn me on. But I do love role play. You know, I love the feeling of of restraint, of being constrained in a corset, or the feeling of silk, or something like that. It's harmless, but still. Um, Basically, how can we make how can we explore sissification fetish without the degradation of women? What were some ways? The way I do it, right? I'm in a relationship right now, right? Where yes, I'm locked in chastity, and we sissify out. I clean the house in a French maid outfit, fully, like full decked out. So like, and I make sure. Never did that when I wasn't. I never cleaned the house so well. Like in regular clothes. It's weird, but it's the way it is, right? So, but it's celebration as opposed to degradation. So, what are some ways we could explore sissification without humiliation and degradation?
And you had mentioned before about, how we do it without degrading women. And I think ultimately, like as a sissy, you can still have the utmost respect for women. And I think that's part of what sissification is, because you love the idea of womanhood so much and you're so inspired by women that you want to role play essentially in a feminine role. And that's ultimately what sissification is. It's different from gender affirmation and exploring gender because it is a form of role play, and sissification is different than being trans or being trans femme, like I mentioned previously with my other client. um, I think that as a sissy you can take on some of the feminine roles that often get put on women, like you said, cleaning the house. Take some of the load off of us as your doms and or as your partners. If you really truly respect women and want to be them, okay, then start acting like them and taking on those gender roles that we are supposed to have in society, like not that that's necessarily the case, but like how it's viewed, like the feminine and masculine gender roles. Okay, then clean the house, take care of the kids, do things for us, pamper us, take care of us. I think that's how you can show your respect for women as a whole. I mean, you'll never fully understand what it's like to be a woman, but I don't see sissification as degrading women. Yes, it can have a humiliation and degradation aspect, but I see it as an appreciation for women in some way.
All right, nothing messing around. The real question: the classic French maid or the dirty?
I love a dirty slut. I love a dirty slut. I want you to put on your sluttiest fucking sissy outfit and get on your hands and knees and do anything I say and take all the cock and all the cum. Yeah, that's my style. I love dirty sluts.
Okay. Hey, so we talked about humiliation, but you also double team. You've double teamed subs before. There's an art to that. You just can't just get two doms off the street and just be like, yeah, double team this sub. So, what makes a good partner to double team with?
You have to have communication. You have to have trust. You can't, like you said, you can't not know the person. There is very few people who I would co-dom with because I need to, understand their style of domination and be compatible with them in order for the session to flow accordingly. Because if it was just somebody who I didn't know their interests, I didn't know how they dom people, because all doms are different. They all have very, very different styles of domination. So I think it's definitely knowing the person, trusting them, and being somewhat similar in your style of domination and your interests and your kinks. I think that's ultimately what makes it work. It's a partnership.
Now, this is an open-ended question, but I think it's a valid question. Sadism. Why?
It is an open-ended question. Sadism, why? It's a form of, like every other kink, it's a form of escapism. It is, for me, it's a form of escapism. I like getting to take out my frustrations on people and having them enjoy it. I like getting to be mean and cruel and unrelenting and tease people and hurt people. It is fucking fun for me. I love it. I enjoy it. It is just as gratifying to me as it is to a masochist who enjoys receiving the pain. I enjoy giving it. I enjoy the mental aspect and the physical aspect of sadism. It's fun. It's an escape. It is a way to express a different part of myself instead of having to be the nice, nurturing mommy type all the time. And that's something that I have to do in my personal life so much. I like getting to not have to be nice to people.
What's the most sadistic thing you've done recently?
recently. This is like equally sadistic and humiliating, but once again, a sub earned a punishment. And so I had to think of something really cruel and like just an FYI, this is kind of disgusting. But I had him one morning take his first awful, horrid piss of the day and piss in a cup, and then you can combine it with like a whole other bunch of gross but edible things, like what is it? Like some vegetables, like just nasty stuff that shouldn't go together, like some milk and then some toenail clippings and throw it in a blender, make a smoothie out of it, and drink it. And send me a video of him drinking it. Which is mean and disgusting. But he loved it.
I'm sitting here, right? I'm sitting because I take notes and I try to get quotes and stuff like that. And you're going through this thing of what, and I am struck. I can't do it. I can do it. So, statism. Why?
That's why.
Okay. That's why. What are some ways you could be sadistic in everyday life?
I would say tease and denial. That's a big thing. I can send you plenty of pictures of me, or naughty pictures and naughty videos, and have you locked in chastity, and have nobody know that you're locked in chastity, but not let you do anything about it. So your little sissy clitty is trying to get hard in your chastity cage, and you can't do anything about it. Like, I can tease you endlessly, and I am such a great seductress and such a good tease to people, and it's very frustrating for them. Deprivation in their day-to-day lives, making them do activities that they don't really want to do. Like, you can be a nurturing sadist. Like, I want you to drink your water, and I want you to work out and do all the things that you don't want to do in your day-to-day life to take care of yourself, and that in itself is torture for you. Like incorporating that and depriving them of the things that they want and can't have, making them make a healthy meal and eat vegetables instead of doing things that they want to do and they want to eat. Behavior control, modification, that's a big part of it. I definitely think there's a lot of fun ways that you can incorporate sadism and domination into your everyday lifestyle.
So basically, the person called you. You got them there. You humiliated them. You're sadistic to them. You financially dominated them. Now you're going to lock them up in chastity. For those who don't know, you get 50% off everything locked in chastity, but they want to go 15.
Go check it out.
Oh, anyway, go check it out. But seriously, let's talk about chastity. Right? Let's talk about chastity in the sense of, do you have anybody locked up right now?
Yes, I do. I have 2 subs in long term, which is the keys on my neck right now. I've had one. She's been my sub, and she's been in pretty consistent chastity pretty much for the last year since I met her. And we have a rule, like, unless it's going to show through her outfits, because she is the trans femme sub, and she does wear, very feminine, tight, form-fitting clothes. Like, that's the only exception I will give her. My other sub, I am training currently to be in long-term chastity pretty much 24/7, almost 24/7, with the exception of a few hours out of the week to shower, make sure everything is hygienic and clean, and like pretty much in full-term chastity and key held by me. And one of them, I have their only keys, and they're only allowed to unlock when they see me. So I have to give them the keys. In the event of an emergency, obviously that would be kind of difficult, but that is a decision that they have informed and consciously made. So it's up to their discretion.
Plastic, silicone, or metal?
I personally prefer metal and steel cages because I feel like they're a lot more hygienic, they're a lot more breathable. Plastic, it retains more moisture, more bacteria, it's less breathable, and plastic cages just break so fucking easily. Silicone is a good like starter chastity cage if you're just getting used to how it feels and like you want to try it on and get used to like your sizing and everything like that. But it's not something I would recommend long term. I think silicone and plastic are more like a session play circumstance. Definitely long term. And if you're planning on wearing it for a while, like a breathable steel chastity cage is definitely the way to go.
Why do you feel men want to be in chastity?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Why do you feel men want to be in chastity?
It
Why do
is.
you personally think they do?
I personally think that it is because men have, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of most of the men I've ever met here, have the desire for sex all the time, and that can be problematic. That can, inhibit your ability to focus and to really focus on what's important in your everyday to day life. It can be a distraction. Your penis can be a distraction to you. I think that they like the control that I have over them because your manhood is something that is so valuable in society. That is what makes you a man and what makes you you. And to have that essentially controlled and taken away from you can be exhilarating and empowering and arousing in itself. And just handing over a key to somebody that says, hey, you can only use your dick when I tell you you can use your dick, that is to them like, that is so enticing to, I think, people who wear chastity.
Yes, definitely. It is. Are there any new or fun ways to tease a chastity sub?
I I don't know if there's anything new for me personally. I have a lot of fun ways that I like to tease subs in chastity, and sometimes my subs will give me recommendations about what they like, but I've done it all, honestly. So I can't really say if there's anything new and exciting for me personally.
What would you say the classics are? What are some ways to tease a chastity?
Hmm. Some of my favorites, obviously, are being I like, sending seductive pictures and videos, knowing that they're going to get aroused by that, and knowing that it's just nothing's going to happen, essentially. They're going to try, and it's going to be very uncomfortable for them. That's one of the ways that I like to tease distance and chastity, like when I'm not in person with somebody, when I am in person with somebody, because they've been in chastity for so long, or even if they're in chastity short term, they're just so aroused and so excited. I like to tease with toys, vibrators, which it can be uncomfortable and it can be painful, and some people enjoy that. But like, them trying to get an erection is close to impossible when they're really tightly in chastity and have been locked up for a while. So I like the tease, my toys, getting my nails under there, or a vibrator, and just having them feel that sensation right when they're close to the edge. Just nope, turn it off, take it away. No more sensation for you. Let you suffer and then stay in there even longer, another week.
Oh my god, I left it. See, you hypnotized me with your hypno dom style. Can't even concentrate.
You're welcome.
I do. Okay. Oh, the stand question. The stand question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be, and how would you use it in your kink club?
I've actually thought about this a lot. And I would have the ability to read minds because there are some clients and some submissives who don't really divulge in what they want, don't even sometimes know what they want. And so the ability to read your mind would make that a lot less challenging for me to come up with a scenario for you. But also, if I am able to read your thoughts and I know what you're thinking, I can use that against you. So it's a means of torture.
Of course. We have another chastity question. Basically, I have a I have a lot of friends who are all my friends are dominatrixes or kinky, basically. Hence your kinky friends. And one of the challenges that the key holders, my fellow key holders, have is that subs are sneaky. They lie. They try to get over on you, right? So tell us about a time where either they did get over on you. This is education for other DOMs out there, right? Either that they got over on you, or somebody that they did, or maybe that they almost did and you caught them. Please tell us about ways to tease a chastity doll. We did that already. But tell us about yeah, how tell us about cheating.
Obviously, that'll always happen. And I will almost always find out about it because, people who are guilty usually have a very hard time keeping that to themselves, especially subs in my experience. Um, and my subs, I'm not there with them 24/7. Some of them I have never even met in person. They're online, they're long distance. So I can't, unfortunately, as much as I would like to, control them 24/7. And they're going to do what they want. And they're going to masturbate and do things that they're not supposed to do. To my knowledge, that hasn't happened recently because my subs are very good boys and girls and they like to please me. And that's why I kind of have a reward and reprimand system in place. Because it's like, if I find out that you did something that I told you you're not supposed to do, then you're not going to be able to do that for even longer. You're going to be locked up even longer. And the fear and the anticipation of being locked up even longer oftentimes will keep them obedient, or at least telling me that they're keeping me obedient, that they're keeping themselves obedient. Um, so that's some incentive right there, is the reward and reprimand. And the reward part is, if you do what I tell you, you will be rewarded. I will allow you 30 minutes out of chastity one day. I'm very, very strict. I will allow you 30 minutes out of chastity one day, or you'll be allowed to watch porn one day, or you'll be able to jerk off just one time. Often that's not the case. And with my submissives, I don't typically allow them to do that. I own their orgasms and their pleasure. Um, so yeah, I think it's just the consistent drilling into their heads about, like, if you do this, you will get rewarded, and if you do this, you will be punished. And oftentimes, I feel like with most non-stubborn submissives, that works.
And Vladimir has a question. When it comes to medical play, which part do you enjoy the most? Which era of medical play suits you? And which medical role do you prefer? It's a loaded question, Stan.
That is a lot to process.
Let's
In terms of, I like the very vintage medical style. Like, that is the very vintage, nurse kind of style. That's kind of my thing. I do have a lot of pictures, if you check out my Instagram, my other social media, and my paywall platforms, of me in a very vintage-esque nurse costume. I definitely love that. Like, aspects of medical play, I feel like, I don't know, it's like equal parts sadistic and sensual and pleasurable. I really like sounding, I really like speculums, I really like gloves. I notice that gloves, any kind of gloves, latex gloves, any kind of medical gloves, every variety, everybody has a very specific niche when it comes to their medical fetish. And a lot of times I honestly find it to be less sexual and more nurturing. Somebody, people want me to care for them. And I like that aspect of it. I like, being able to be nurturing sometimes. And then there is the sadistic side. So I get the best of both worlds, where there's medical torture and it can be painful and it can be, cruel, but it can also be equal parts nurturing and me caring for somebody. And I like that I get to embrace both aspects of that in the same type of play.
Speaking of medical play, I had, like I mentioned before, I had a liver transplant, and because of I was in and out of the hospital for years, basically, uh, I have a new appreciation for medical play, a very new appreciation for medical play on a whole new level. Um, that's okay. So let's talk about BBC cum slut porn. What are some misconceptions of being a BBC?
So BBC in general, any kind of race involved fetish is a controversial topic. So I have to approach this topic very gracefully in order to not get canceled. Um, so I am a self-proclaimed BBC lover, self-proclaimed BBC cum slut. That is a preference of mine. There are some misconceptions and there's very, you know, varying opinions on this, where some people find that it is degrading and it's racist and it is, problematic. Although any man who I've ever met who has referred to himself as a BBC owner or, a BBC bull is completely confident in that title. You know, they appreciate that title. They like it. They find it to be, you know, enticing and arousing and hot. And then I have also met people who are uncomfortable with it and think that it is degrading and think that it's derogatory and think that it is a form of racism. And I think ultimately, I'm a Latina woman. I am not black. I do not have BBC. I don't know that I'm qualified to speak on, you know, how it makes people feel, obviously. Um, but I have met a lot of people in the community who are very much into that and they call themselves that. And I feel as though you know, race fetishization in porn has existed forever. That's always been a thing, you know, not just BBC. There's Latina, Latino, there's Ebony, there's Asian, there's Pog, you know, and I think ultimately it is how you treat it. I don't personally see it as a form of race play. As I said, don't know that I'm qualified to speak on that because I am not using it in a derogatory way. I'm not using it, you know, to be, you know, to degrade somebody personally. I don't partake in the degradation, you know, and the derogatory form of race play, which not knocking that. Some people are into that. That is just not something that I feel comfortable doing. So I see it as a very honorable title and a very, you know, I mean it in a good connotation.
Why do you think BBC porn is so popular?
It is like, it's just, you know, I think it's taboo. I think, you know, you often see it's the typical scenario, and this is not me speaking from personal opinion, it is the typical scenario you see in porn is, you know, the white woman being fucked by the black man with the big cock. You know, and that's typically the scenario that you see in BBC porn. I don't want to get into where that stems from for some people, and for other people it's just the taboo aspect, and it is a stereotype that all black men have big dicks, and you know, but there are also big white cock categories, and I can assure you that not every black man has a big dick and not every white man does not have a big dick. But I do think that it is formed in stereotype and taboo, honestly, and that is part of what fuels the attraction to it.
I think people are just scared to talk about it. People are scared to evolve. I think the human race is scared to evolve. Personally, that's a whole other rant I have. But
Yeah.
Just like kink, people are scared of kink. They're scared to, and what I'm doing, I'm really just celebrating people. I'm celebrating you, Sherry. You are beautiful. You're wonderful. You're creative. Your life. It's wonderful. So I want to celebrate you, but because we're kinky, right? They don't understand us, so they're very quick to judge. That's, you know. So let's move on and talk about your ultimate kinky fantasy. Let's say the kinky world is filled with dreamers. I was at the Manor today. Oh, not today. I was at the Manor this weekend, and we're all talking about. We all have hopes and pipe dreams, and hopefully, maybe only 1 out of 10 will happen. But still, we're dreaming. But so let's, for right now, let's dream. You have endless resources. You can go anywhere in the world with anybody you want. Anything you want to do. It's your ultimate kinky fantasy.
I don't know. I can't pinpoint one exactly kinky fantasy that I have. In terms of femdom, I would definitely like to um, open a dungeon, and not just any dungeon. Like I want to have different rooms. I don't know if you ever heard of Pandora's Box in New York, but it is incredible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it has different rooms for different things. Like it has a sissy boutique, it has a wrestling room, it has everything. You know, like a standard BDSM room with an impact play scene. You know, with all of the bondage equipment and all of the toys and everything. And that is like ultimately my fantasy and my goal someday is to be able. If I had unlimited resources, I would open the world's best dungeon that anybody has ever seen, and I would do so many horrible, amazing, wonderful, disgusting things in there. In terms of non-femdom, like in my personal desire and kinky fantasy, I want to have a like 15-man gangbang, all cream pie, which is not something I tell people very frequently and indulge in, but you know, that is my dirty secret.
Well, this is the internet. You never know. We can make this happen. That's all. We're all about bringing people together, right? That's what the kink community does. You know the hashtag, everybody. What was it? Kink helps kink. There you go. Oh, okay. So Stan Vladimir has a question. Which actor or actress, or just which actor would you like to have as a sub and as a dom for Double Bond?
Ooh, that's hard. That's a hard question. Ah.
We can make it simpler. Just what actor, would you use it in a session, and how would you?
Mm, I might have to think about that one and get back to you because I, at this point in time, do not have an answer to that question.
Well, DL Joey just asked, any more diaper sessions to share with us?
I have had very few diaper sessions, unfortunately, but it is something I am interested in and fascinated in. I love ABDLs. I love mommy doming. I love age play. I love all aspects of that. So I hope in the future, hopefully the near future, I will have more diaper sessions and I'll be able to tell you all the juicy details about them.
Rapid fire recommendation, right? They don't have to be kink related, right? And they don't have to be like the be all end all of to represent you, right? It's just like, hey, this is cool. You should check it out. That kind of attitude, right? So I'm gonna ask you a certain type of thing to recommend. You're gonna say, recommend a film.
A film. This is kind of mainstream right now and recently, but
Sure.
Saltburn. I would say Saltburn is my go-to right now.
Yeah, that's mainstream. Yeah, what kind of mainstream movie has a guy having sex with a grave?
And drinking bathwater, you know.
Yeah, drinking post cum bathwater.
I love it.
Yeah, lick. Oh, he licked that drain. Licked it. And that dance, that dance. Watch Saltburn. It's great. It's a wonderful statement on class. You know what I mean? Which I found fascinating. All right, recommend a book.
It's all like kink related because it's all I read and consume and
Yeah,
watch.
I know. Me too.
Ethical slut. Ethical slut. I highly recommend, even if you're not poly, even if you're not ethically non-monogamous, to read that book. Everybody should read that book. It is amazing.
Ethical slut. No doubt. All right. Recommend a song.
A song. My go-to right now is "I Like the Way You Kiss Me" by Artemis or "Too Sweet" by Hosier.
Oh, okay. Recommend a television show.
Another kink related one is Bonding on Netflix. I don't think it's an accurate representation of BDSM, but I do like the accountability that is represented in that show.
Yeah. One thing I noticed with kink and media, I'm all for it. Like as long as it's trying. Even I think 50 Shades of Grey is garbage, but like it's still trying. It's still like it. So that was good. It served a purpose. It's still it's creative. I'd rather you know. But then it inspired conversation for people like us to talk about it right now. So
It teaches a valuable lesson about BDSM.
yeah. And I think there should be more writings. There should be, if you're, because every person I know in the kink community secretly writes in their journal or whatever, or if they're writing on FetLife or stuff like that. Put it together. Go out there. I'm telling you, you're creative, wonderful people in the kink community. There's artists. There's stories. Write, publish, promote. Come on my show. I'll interview you. Get out there.
Yes, we
Be
need
creative,
more
people.
real life kink and more real life BDSM and education of people who have been in the industry, of people who have been in the scene and can actually portray a real life image of that.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the reasons I continue to do this. You have the fire in you. Love it. Okay, what you got some? What type of music do you use in your sessions and for after?
Um, Music is actually not that popular in my sessions, believe it or not. But I do like the sensory aspect of music, and I think that, like, you know, dark wave, techno, trance, like those are really good sensory stimulating types of music. But ultimately, if somebody wants to incorporate music into the session, before, during, or after, like if that's their form of aftercare or something that is stimulating to them, I want to know what kind of music they're interested in.
Okay, we're gonna play underrated, overrated. Oh, and yeah, go to patreon.com/YKF. Um, this could be the last show. I don't know. So we need money to survive. Kink needs money to survive. If you want to be kinky, you have to pay Cherry. You have to pay me. Basically, you have to pay the kink community. Pay support the kink community, people. It's a wonderful thing. So we'll play underrated, overrated. I say a kink or a fetish, and you say if it's overrated or underrated, and we're gonna see how kinky you are. But the reason is why. Please say that. I'll mix both games. Usually, I say um, the word association game where I say word, like if I say chastity, right, you may say lock. But if I say chastity, you may say think of Saltburn, right? There's no wrong answer. So say the first thing that comes to your head, and then say if it's overrated or underrated. You got it?
Yes.
Okay. And join in. Everybody out there in the chat, join in. I'll throw it up, and we can play overrated, underrated. So let's start. Chastity devices, overrated, underrated.
Underrated.
Why?
I think every man should be in chastity at some point and just experience that. Like, honestly, that's my personal opinion.
Okay. French maid outfits, overrated, underrated.
Overrated. Kind of vanilla. You know,
Yeah.
they don't do it for me. They do it for some people, but not for me.
I look at it as it's funny because that used to be, it was like a gateway lingerie fetish for me, because it was like the ultimate, because it's all decked out, like the whole thing. And then the deeper you get into the scene, that there's all these other outfits that are so much more intriguing, right? But I don't know. For me, I always go back to it. It's like a classic, so it never fails, so to speak. Underrated, overrated, scarification.
Underrated. I think scarification is beautiful. And in order to go through that process, you have to have very strong physical and emotional will. And I think that any kind of artistic cutting, scarification, that can be a beautiful, intimate experience. And there is so much wonderful culture and education behind it that I think everybody should learn about, because that does not come from DOMs. You know, that dates back centuries. And I think everybody should learn about that.
Stan Vladimir asks, ball gags, overrated or
What did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
ball gags, overrated or underrated?
I think they're underrated because I mean, it's like, you know, it's the most typical type of ball gag, you know, but I feel like everybody's just so much more fascinated with all the different types of gags in the world, you know. But I love a classic ball gag, honestly.
Collected reader asks, how long do you think your male subs should be in chastity before any type?
What was the last part of the question?
How long do you think your male subs should be in chastity before any type of release?
In beginner chastity, I will be a little bit more lenient. I think like the standard in the beginning when they're training, I would say a minimum of 1 to 2 weeks, obviously with some breaks in between to shower, to breathe, to do what they need to do to maintain hygienic. But in terms of orgasm, I would say for me personally, a minimum of 2 weeks.
Collected reader coming through with the questions. Stan Vladimir says sensory deprivation, overrated or
Underrated. Sensory deprivation is such an amazing experience, and it unlocks things in you that you didn't even realize were possible before, you know, because it forces you to use the other senses that are not being taken away from you, like the sensation and the touch and everything, and that just totally amplifies the experience.
Sunshine says dirty panties work great as a ball gag. Overrated, underrated. Sploshing.
Mm, mm, I don't really know if that's underrated or overrated because a lot of people don't even know what that is, honestly. So I don't know.
Well, splashing is, just for those who don't know, food, basically.
Yeah,
Mushy food, pies, cakes. Shout out to Piggy, for the matter, loves the sploosh. Yeah, splashing.
I'm
Any
not.
other thoughts on splashing?
I guess it would be overrated for me because I'm not personally a fan. I can deal with mess to an extent that I don't like personally being sticky, and I'm not somebody who really likes incorporating food into sex, but that's just my personal opinion.
I like, having a nice dinner, like a nice romantic dinner with like music in the background, and maybe like television or a movie or something like that to watch together, and then the sex afterwards.
Not
you know.
not together.
But don't get me wrong. I'll admit, I I'm probably gonna have dinner locked in chastity tonight, right after this. So it is your normal picturesque dinner is kinky as can be.
That's different.
Uh,
That's different.
I guess overrated, underrated. Riding crops.
I think that they are underrated because they're such a simple implement, but they can do so much if you know how to use them correctly.
What are some of your other? Okay, let me back up. Your favorite impact play toy? There are so many. There's riding crops. There's whips. There's floggers and everything like that. There's all these different kinds. If you had to choose one, your go-to, your heart. What's your favorite impact play toy?
I would definitely say canes. That's my favorite implement to use and my least favorite implement to receive.
And why is that? Do you have any stories about canes that stick out in your?
I like the marks that it leaves. I like the pain that it can cause. I like that it can be very intense or very not intense. Depends on how you use it and the purpose of using it. I personally don't like them for myself and being used on me because I am a thuddy, not a stingy person. If you're not a stingy person, then canes are not for you.
What about water sports? Overrated or underrated?
So underrated. I love water sports. I love them. I love being on the giving end. I love being on the receiving end. I love piss. I'm a piss slut through and through.
All right. Now, what is it about piss specifically? Because it's, as a fetish. First of all, it's a big fetish. There are a lot of people pissing on people out there. You know who you are. Um, okay, so seriously, let's break it down. Let's break it down for a second. It's not as bad as scat, right? In certain ways, if you're going to look at it as a level, good, bad, right? Let's not look at it. I don't want to kink shame. So let's say it's not as extreme as scat, but it's still extreme. Even biologically, it's not as harmful as biologically hurtful as scat is. So, but it's still can be considered gross and disgusting for some people. What is it about specifically about piss that makes the fetish so fascinating to some?
It's okay. A lot of people like fluid play. Like it's to me, piss is like an extension of cum. Honestly, like it's just like one step up from if you like cum, then you're probably gonna like being pissed on. If you like being come on or come in, or you're probably gonna at some point be curious about piss. I think that it is water sports and piss play are erotic. It's hot. Like it is. It's different. It's a little taboo, but there's an erotic, intimate aspect to it. It can be very sensual or it can be degrading and humiliating, and it depends on which side of the coin you're really looking for. And I definitely think that it can be a good form of power exchange for dom, for dom and sub dynamic, for somebody to say like I want to be pissed on, or I want to clean you up after you've pissed, and it can be very sensual and intimate and erotic.
Underrated, overrated. Where are we? Mummification.
definitely underrated, but it has to be something that you know how to do safely because it can be dangerous, and something that you're really mentally prepared for because some people think that they're okay with it until they actually experience it. And it is very, like, it's confining. There's an erotic asphyxiation aspect that can be involved in it. You have to be in a very good mindset to be able to partake in that as a submissive, because you have to be very calm and very relaxed and very in control of your feelings and not panic, because it is so restricting. And if you're claustrophobic, I do not recommend. But I personally, it's something that I love doing and would love to do more of as a dom.
You were saying being careful. I mean, on the mental aspect, being careful, just the physical aspect, what can go wrong with my
You can restrict somebody's breathing. That's obviously dangerous. You need to know how tightly and where to place the tape or the gauze or whatever you're personally using as a method of restriction. You need to, mummification is usually fully encasing, so you have to be careful that people can breathe either out of their nostrils or out of their mouth and are still able to get some oxygen, even though part of the point of it is the erotic asphyxiation and kind of restricting breathing. But definitely you have to be super careful and make sure that that person is in a good headspace, that you're able to get them out quickly if you need to be. So that's why safety scissors are always important. You kind of need to know the anatomy more or less to make sure you're not putting too much pressure on muscles or tendons or arteries. So I think it's like all forms of BDSM that involve any kind of restriction or pain or anything that can take away your functions. You need to be educated, about anatomy. That's a big thing.
someone like I said, someone called you up, brought him in, you humiliate him, you were sadistic to him, you locked him in chastity, dressed them up as sissification, you mummified him. Now we're to peg him. What do you do? What's the next step?
I don't know. That's a good question. What's the next step? Whatever, is negotiated upon and whatever you both want, I think. Because there could be so many next steps. There could be so much more that you could do. You could end the scene right there and do aftercare, or you could do something. I don't know what like the next step up is. Like I don't know how you define sadistic.
No, I'm talking about peg. I'm talking about pegging. You're about to peg somebody. Take us through that process. You took them. They called you. You know, Pep Love. They want a real session, right? And they humiliated it. You humiliated them. You were sadistic towards them. You locked them up in chastity. Put them in a slutty, dirty slut French maid outfit. And now you want to peg them. What do you do? How do you do that?
Obviously, you just make sure you have access to their asshole. Put your strap on and just out on. No, but there is pegging is one of those things that there is an obvious process for. Like personally, for me personally, and I would never shame somebody. Like anytime you're putting something in somebody's ass, you're taking a risk, and I don't have to define what I mean by that. We all know what I mean by that. I personally like my pegging ritual with my subs is I personally like to have them clean out everything and make sure that they are comfortable and confident, because I think that the ultimate thing that makes pegging difficult for a lot of people to get to the mental headspace is the fear that they're gonna shit on somebody. And every bottom has experienced that at some point, and any real dom is, we're not grossed out by that. We have very strong stomachs. Things happen, and we'll never shame people for that unless they want to be shamed for that. um, but yeah, like I personally like to have my subs clean out and make sure they're comfortable. And then, like, if they don't have any experience, there's obviously a lot of working up to that. I like to have them train beforehand if I know that I'm going to be pegging them with butt plugs and things like that. At home, I'll have them train for, like, let's say 10 minutes a day to start if they're beginners, or if they have more experience, we'll start with some fingers and work our way up, some butt plugs, some toys before we really get into it. Some people are just so used to it and they're so ready that it goes right in. Other people, your asshole is a muscle, and you need to relax that muscle in order for it to be comfortable and pleasurable and to not hurt somebody. So it's not one of those things that you can just like do like on the spot. I feel like it needs to at least be negotiated prior, and have some sort of work up to it before you get into the real thing.
You got to ease into it. Basically, that's the biggest advice everyone gives. You got to ease into it, into pegging. Kate West, friend of the show, has a question. Why are men so obsessed with their own ass?
I love that question so much. I fucking love it. I think that, we all, as we all know, and as we've all heard, men have their G spots in their assholes, their prostates. That is the magical spot that can have the potential to feel so amazing and makes orgasms so much more intense. I think it's the same reason why women and vagina owners are obsessed with the idea of their G spots and, learning how to squirt, and why that's such a big prevalent topic. It is Your asshole is a magical gateway to pleasure. It is a magical orifice that can bring you otherworldly pleasure. And I genuinely believe that every man should experience that at some point and explore that magical gateway to pleasure. Like, I think men's assholes are like the great unknown to them. And that's why they're so curious about it, because they don't know. And there's such this stigma surrounding, anal play, especially with cis hetero males, that it's gay if you play with your own ass or if you have a woman playing with your ass. If that is the case, you are not gay. If there's a woman playing with your ass, you are not gay. If you're playing with your own ass, that does not make you gay. And even if you are gay, even if you have another man playing with your ass, who fucking cares? Just have fun and do it safely.
Yeah,
Enjoy it.
yeah.
Who cares?
I think the word or the phrase of the day is "so what." Seriously, so oh, big deal. You like sticking things up your butt. It's your butt. You can do whatever you want with your butt. Have fun with it. So what? It's your butt. So what? It's your butt. Uh, all right. Pegging. We did the pegging thing. Pegging, overrated or underrated?
What did you say? I'm sorry. It keeps cutting out.
Pegging, overrated or underrated?
Underrated. I love pegging. Men love pegging. Even when they tell you they don't like stuff in their butt, they're probably lying. They've probably put something up there. They've probably been curious about it. I love it.
Larakai says, "Good evening, Nick. Of course, I'd catch it right at the abyss of anal pleasure." Nice to meet you, Cherry. On the D, I hope to watch this full later live. Yes, catch it live. Live in the moment, everybody. All right, finally, underrated, overrated. We've reached the end of this game. No pun intended. Scat.
I don't know if that's underrated or overrated, but personally,
Yeah.
a hard limit for me. That's a no go for me. It's not one of those things that I can do. Like, I make that very clear up front. It is not one of those things I can explore. I can in role play or fantasy, but not in like a real life scenario.
Bobby Lott asks, "How do you determine the proper aftercare?"
I obviously, with any scene, there is a ton of communication and negotiation that goes into a scene with my personal play partners and my clients and submissives, well before we establish anything, and book a session. So I will ask them what their preferred method of aftercare is. Some people don't like aftercare at all. Some people just get up after the session and they just leave. They put their clothes on and they go. Other people need time. They need to sit. They need to talk. They need, some kind of physical interaction, like to be held, or they need to lay down and have a blanket and a stuffed animal, or, you know, um, they need a shower. They want to smoke. Everybody's form of aftercare is different, and that's entirely up to each individual. And I try to determine like some gauge of that before a session, but also it can vary how somebody's going to react to a scene when it's happening or after it's happening. And so we kind of can work with that and go from there if their needs change after the fact or during the fact.
So we're winding it down, but two more questions. What are some ways kinky people can help each other out?
build community. Stop working against each other because there is nobody in the kink community who is better than anybody else in the kink community. You know, just because your kinks are different than my kinks doesn't mean that I should shame you for that or I should shun you for that. You know, I think cancel culture has become such a big thing, especially with these, like, I hate to say this word, I hate this word, but these woke new sex workers, especially, and, you know, like trying to sanitize taboo kink, you know, and people who are part of the kink community, but just because they don't understand somebody else's kinks and don't want to educate themselves or take the time to learn, them excluding other people from the community. And that's just not how it should work. We should all educate ourselves and be accepting of other people and help each other out because we are stigmatized and shunned from society as kinky people enough as it is. So we don't need to work against each other.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, Jerry. This is struck a nerve. Love it. So, okay, both of us, we've experienced so much, but the kink rabbit hole goes deep, right?
Yes.
What are some new things that you're getting interested in that you haven't been interested in before yet, or that you're just starting, or that you're just curious about?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm always evolving in my personal kinks and in my kinks as a dom. Um, I think, you know, with sessions and with new submissives, I hear a lot of the same things over and over and over again. Very rarely does something really pique my interest or catch my attention. Um, I'm not really sure anything's changed in my personal life recently either that is new or, you know, like I guess I will have to tell you about that if something ever comes up and we have another interview. I'll be sure to tell all my fans and viewers about my new evolving kinks as they arise.
Nice. So, yeah. So, where do you, in general, though, where do you want this path to lead you?
I currently am actually pursuing a PhD in psychology with a focus in human sexuality and gender studies. Sorry, tripping over my words. It's been a long day. um, but I would eventually like to become a professional board certified sex therapist because I feel like even though we're becoming more open with sexuality, we're also becoming more oppressed at the same time. And I feel like I want to help people with that. That is definitely my long term goal right now. And to hopefully one day open my own dungeon and work on the side more so of mentoring people rather than being directly involved in doing sessions myself and being a dominatrix. That's part of my, you know, move to PEP is to kind of move away from the in-person stuff and just keep like a small group of people who I've been working with for a while and have a bond with and can trust and keep them as in-person clients, and the rest move away from that, focus on content, focusing on opening my dungeon and working to pursue my degree. That's ultimately my long-term goal right now.
Thank you so much, Sherry, and thank you joining PEP, which is this is exciting. PEP is amazing. Every woman in PEP is fantastic. Is contributing to is making a world a kinkier, beautiful place. So support PEP, support your kinky friends, support Cherry Cruz, and remember, go to Locked in Lust, 15% off of all chastity devices with order code YKF. And yes, 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 yes. How can we get in touch with you? How can we? What's the number for PEP? What is the what websites? What where are you? What platforms are you on? What's your FetLife name? MySpace, Friendster, all that stuff. 4chan.
I am everywhere, and I am everywhere. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on FetLife, I'm on literally every paywall platform on the planet. OnlyFans, Fansly, ManyVids. My handle on pretty much everything is Miss Cherry Cruz, MISSCHERRYCRUZ. You can find me on Fet, Instagram, Twitter. Um, uh, Everywhere. That is my handle. That's on OnlyFans. That's everything. I go live on PEP. Actually, I haven't actually officially started at PEP yet. My phone sex operation experience has all been personal up until this point. I go live this Thursday, the 18th at 7 p.m. EST. So give me a call. In the meantime, give all the other ladies at PEP a call because they are all equally incredible and amazing. You can find them at peplove.com. Go check that out if you're interested in giving us a call or sexting us or having some fun with us. Yeah.
Everybody go to peplove.com. I'm trying to put the URL up, but StreamYard's not letting me. Anyway, check me out. YourKinkyFriends.com. Support the Patreon. Go to LockedInLust.com. Get 15% off with the code. Support the kink community. Support writers, authors, podcasts, everything. A dominatrix, financial doms, everybody. We got to get together. You want to stay kinky? We got to do it together. People,
Yes.
come on, we can do this. I had a wonderful weekend. I hope you did too. It's gonna be a great week. It's gonna be a great week, Cherry. Thank you very much. Stay kinky, everybody, and remember the cardinal rule: be cool, be kind, keep it open.
Mm-hmm.